Detours. Brought to you by Sports and Spokes, the magazine for wheelchair sports and recreation. All right, Jeremy, you come out of, let's go ahead and back it up and go back to collegiate. You come out of Whitewater, Wisconsin. They've got a pretty stellar program. Do you feel like in some ways the growth that you've had in sport as a basketball player, did that all start with your collegiate career?
Yeah, so I would say that's where all my high performance or competitive nature kind of stemmed or derived from, was Whitewater. So Opie Ladie, or Jeromie Meyer, was my coach. Kind of instilled a pretty solid culture of winning and being competitive. So I got my first tryout when I was in Whitewater, and that's kind of what led to me trying out for national teams, believing I could make that level and things like that, is because at Whitewater we get a confidence instilled in us that if we want to make it to that level, we have all that we need to do right there in that small town. So it's pretty awesome.
In some ways, what you're talking about is you can be good enough, but sometimes maybe not believe wholeheartedly enough in yourself and your abilities to move forward. So sometimes it's about a coach like Opie who can push you forward and make you believe in yourself.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we did drills, we did certain things and practices that gave us that internal confidence that we were prepared or ready for those moments, right? So it's practicing like we're in a game, getting in the gym and scrimmaging, getting held accountable by an individual where they're doing what they expect of us, right? So they're expecting us to be in the gym at 6 in the morning, working out, playing basketball, and then being there at night scrimmaging. He's there doing it as we're doing it, right? So the expectations that were on us is from an individual that was doing what was expected. So it was really easy just to kind of follow lead.
How does it transfer over when you're moving from one level to another? The collegiate program, it's intense. You're still playing a very high level of ball, but then you go on to that international level where you got to start playing against other countries, people you don't see very often.
Yeah.
How does it translate?
So I always think of it in a way where you still use the same fundamentals that you would use as a juniors player, right? But you're just performing them at a higher level and a more intense level, right? Everybody's throwing the hook pass with their outside hand, keeping it away from the defender. Whether you're a juniors player or you're an international player, it's just performing that task or that skill on a much higher level, right? So all of your fundamentals and all of the reads and ideas that you do in the game don't really change. It's just the level and the pace of the game that changes. So then you have to adapt and develop that quicker thinking, more of a active time and things like that, right? You're never really developing these different sets of skills. It's just kind of refining the fundamentals that you already have.
When you go internationally and you get to that level where you're seeing players that you don't see very often, how does that challenge you? Because you like I said, you're not seeing them on a regular basis, so you're facing them maybe for the first time.
Yep. Yeah, that's where you got to really rely on your training, the things you do in practice to prepare you for those moments, like watching game film, seeing other individuals play, and trying to have scout teams show off that type of play that an athlete might have when you go to play them. But yeah, it's definitely one of those where you have to rely on your training and your discipline leading up to that moment to prepare you for it, because a lot of these times when you play these international teams, you got one shot to play them, right? You're not coming to a tournament every other couple weeks and seeing that athlete. So you've got to really rely on your preparation to give you the highest success in that moment.
As a 2.0, you're right there in that sweet spot. You're in the middle. What are the characteristics that you have to bring to the table to help your team win?
So for me, one of my greatest attributes or skills is that I'm a relatively solid shooter. I have a pretty good form, relatively accurate once I get into a rhythm. But the things I have to rely on more is my speed and my defensive skills may not be up to par with high pointers. So I got to rely on my communication. I got to overcompensate with my vocalization out on the court to allow me to play in defense and to play with a quicker speed, and that helps even the playing field for me. So for me, it's upping my communication and having great intensity, and then also making sure that I'm very consistent with my shot, because if I'm not shooting well, I'm probably not going to be on the floor.
We'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Sports and Spokes magazine. For nearly 50 years, they've produced stories on iconic athletes performing at the top of their game, given generational coverage of sports dating back to the 1970s, and they've shown the way with exciting and timeless magazine cover shots. To stay on top of all the latest news from the world of high-performance adaptive sports, go to sportsandspokes.com. Sports and Spokes, the magazine for wheelchair sports and recreation. How was it playing for Robb Taylor?
It was awesome. So with a lot of the coaches that we've had in the high performance pools, like Robb and Scott Meyer was our assistant coach. I've known them since I've been a little kid, right? I was playing against Robb when he was coaching a juniors program in Chicago, right? So I had a really great dynamic and relationship with Robb. I'm very fortunate I got to get coached by him at that international level. He was great, awesome dude. Hold the same type of values when it comes to basketball. We believe in the same type of basketball system. So it was one of those things where it was an easy translation to play for him just because we were like-minded in the game, in the X's and O's of basketball.
You've been around the game for a while. Best player you can recall? Maybe the top guy.
I would have to say this last go around in Paris. You got guys like Jake, Brian, Bell, Steve Serio, and Trayvon Jennifer. Some of the best players that have ever lived. Right, they're going to go down in the history books as the just literally like the Mount Rushmore of basketball. Right, if there was something like that, it would be those guys. It would be that core four that really led us to 3 gold medals in a row, right? So I can't think of anybody else that would really be like the GOAT of wheelchair basketball.
So you're talking about defenders, so we can go ahead and bounce right into that. Trey Jennifer is a pretty good defender, huh?
Yes, that is definitely a guy you want on your side playing defense. He can lock up anybody and put him in a box out there on the court. It's amazing to watch, but very, very good to have him on your side for sure.
Best international rivalry?
Oh, I would have to say it's gearing up to be a Great Britain rivalry, right? We played them in World Championships, and it's gone back and forth, and then we played them in Paris in the gold medal game. So they're definitely a hungry team that wants to beat the United States. So I would say that's gearing up to be a pretty solid rivalry.
Watching that game, I could tell it looked like it got pretty chippy out there. You guys do a little dirty talk and get nasty with each other?
I think we try to stay composed for the most part. We're never the aggressor, right? But once another team starts to chirp at us or tries to start talking some crap, we're definitely ready to support one another and call them out. And it's one of those where we're beating you and we're doing good and we're letting you know that we're beating you while we're doing it, right? So it's one of those where it just really kills their morale just because there's nothing they can do to stop it, and we're telling them there's nothing they can do to stop it.
If you could think of one rule change, one thing that could help to alter or change or make the game better as you've been going through the whole process, you've been playing for a while.
Yeah.
What would it be?
So I know it's pretty controversial right now, but allowing able-bodied individuals to kind of integrate and play competitively in our sport, I think that would be a pretty solid rule change in the NWBA. It would allow our society to kind of empathize and bridge that gap between what society thinks high-performing competitive athletes can do and then what we actually do, right? I think there's sometimes a common misconception of that. So I think allowing able-bodied players to be a bit more accepted in our competitive grounds and our competitive play, I think that would help kind of broaden the horizons of more individuals that don't know about adaptive sports.
Do you think there'd be a pushback from the Adaptive Society?
Yes, I think it's one of those instances where they think, they have everything they can do, right? They can play any type of sport, or most things in our society are geared towards the able-bodied individual. So I think it would be one of those things where a lot of individuals with disabilities that play sports would feel like they're getting their sport taken away or it's getting overran by able-bodied individuals. I personally think wheelchair basketball itself would benefit more. Other adaptive sports, I can't really speak on that because I've had not much experience with able-bodied individuals in those sports.